this out of the way, I wanted to remind you that this is probably the kind of sword that that the author of the manuscript had in mind when they were saying the sword is wielded in two hands, it's heavy, so the pommel of it has to be heavy, etc. So we'll have a look at this a little. I'll show you certain technical. One second, okay? I'll show you certain technical propositions about gripping this kind of sword, but of course you don't have this kind of sword and you won't use it. I'll treat these things as more of a cultural background and something to think about perhaps, but not necessarily during this seminar, maybe later. And most of it probably won't be very useful in modern competition or in modern weapons and in modern gear. Okay, but I'll show it to you anyway, like out of honesty, right?
You will take your mic and
Great. Okay, yeah. So one thing that I will refer to in particular is the wide blade. Okay, so remember this. This will also be. I will put it next to my bag there. Okay, so it will be lying on the floor. Whenever you are curious or even want to try some exercises with this sword, feel free. You don't have to ask me. Just go and grab it, but make sure that you put it back there so others can then try it when they want. Okay, so this is for you to use. Now, one theoretical thing before we proceed. This is sometimes because, you know, in many HEMA sources, not only in the German tradition, as far as I know, but in the German tradition for sure, you will find remarks that, like going something like, for instance, all masterful fencing is done on the sword, right? Or that masters fight from the sword, or masters fight from the bind. The bind is where the true art is hidden, this kind of stuff, right? So there is clearly some emphasis on mastering the actions, mastering the bind, so to say, right? And you may sometimes find people, quite often actually from my experience, who like take this kind of remarks and try to build a fencing around seeking the other person's blade, right? Or alternatively, creating like rule sets or otherwise fencing environments in which it's the opponent's duty to bind your blade whenever you present it. And well, while I'm not saying it's not applicable to other systems, this does not fit the manuscript 327A at all. But there is an apparent paradox within the manuscript when he speaks about it, because on the one hand, we have a clear instruction saying that again, the true art lies in fighting from the sword, and most examples that the Codex describes in any detail are concerned with fighting from the bind. Also, as I told you yesterday, the main purpose of gaining the first strike is the fourth time, do it in a way that, like, if they parry, puts you in an advantageous position. Okay, and this module is about this aspect, right? But it does not cancel other aspects which are actually more important. Okay, right. Wait a second. There was one thing I wanted to mention. More thing. Perhaps not. Maybe I'll. Okay, fine. So that would be the introduction to today. Do you have questions, please? Okay.
When it comes to mastery is in relation with which context? Is it a social context where you display your skill?
That's a valid question. But in this case, you know, well, yeah. So this begs a longer answer. You are well aware, I think, most of you at least, that fencing was not only, sometimes not primarily, an art of killing. was a social art that had a variety of functions, and one of the most important functions of it was to participate in the community. Right, so a lot of fencing was done in a non-competitive, even, or at least non-lethal context, where you could use it to create social bonds, to present yourself or your family or your lord or whatever allegiance you had in a positive light in the eyes of others, right? So it was something to be spectated. And this aspect in German was called Schiff, not only, but that was one of the common names, which translates roughly as play, right? So Schiffechten was fencing for play, not to kill, usually not even to harm the other person, right? And the manuscript, the author of the manuscript is well aware of this, and he acknowledges the existence of Schiffechten, even hints at its prevalence at his time. But at the same time, when he introduces the teachings of Johannes Lichtenauer, or Meister Lichtenauer, he doesn't call him Johannes, Hans, that is Meister Lichtenauer in the manuscript. So when he introduces Master Lichtenauer's teachings, he says that this teaching is actually beneficial and praiseworthy because of two things. First of all, it encompasses all fencing. The principles are true regardless of whether you're doing play or you're doing actual killing. And the other benefit of it is that the actual techniques that are described there are those that will allow you to kill another person without being killed yourself. So it belongs to what he calls a serious fencing, which is in German it's ernst. Committed, something serious, something done for real. Right, so the things described in the codex are mostly those that the author saw as the real thing meant for killing people.
Since the federal wasn't invented yet, do we know what kind of sword they were using for this sword blade?
No, we have no idea. Okay. Yeah, so just to finish answering that questions. In this context, his answer of mastery seemed to be rather pragmatic.
Okay, so it's not three of the full art in chips or in herbs.
Yeah, now I recall the last thing I want to say. Yeah, so now you may have heard that there are no parries in the constant German English. Right? That's a great topic. I won't delve into discussing all views on that, but it remains a simple fact that in the manuscript there are parries. And more to it, as I told you yesterday, it's not the Vorschlag that's the cornerstone in a way. But depends on how you see it, because Vorschlag is extremely important, and this is, as I told you yesterday, what the author of the manuscript sees as the pinnacle of fencing. Being able to create a Vorschlag situation at will is what exceptionally good fencers do. That's what we are talking about. But at the same time, he has another remark elsewhere that if you want to ever become a good fencer, so now we're looking at the starting point of teaching, the real foundation, you need to be very well versed in the arts, which he calls Abwenden. One of the first things. Right? So the whole system starts from the parries, right? And parries are binding. So although, as I told you, the best idea in the manuscript author eyes is to create a situation where it is the opponent that has to parry, right? This is the Vorschlag situation. He acknowledges that this won't happen always, and with your skill being below a certain level, it probably won't be happening often. Right? And you will often find yourself in the opposite situation where you have to parry, and hence the bind word becomes crucial because it has to be you
Un warm-up. Moi, je suis warm-up. Hein.
First one is easy. You go to all fours, knees up, and then we do the so-called bear walk. Well, at first you can do it anyway, but in any way. But if you want to make it proper, then make sure that as you lift the foot, one foot go forward. This is the left, and the right hand at the same time goes forward, so that you, for a moment, support yourself only on one hand and one foot. That works as here. And now it's important to be gentle with your hands, not like hold them in the floor, rather than the fingers first, already active, and gently put the rest of the hands on the floor. Okay? So this is what's going to
Alors, main droite, pied gauche, ça n'a aucun sens.
T'avais commencé correctement. Change de jambe. Oui.
Again, with this exercise, remember that you work crosswise, so it's actually very difficult, almost impossible to do this exercise with both limbs on the same side, right? So you always work.
It's actually easier.
Okay, maybe we'll do different. But still, I propose we do crosswise. Now, if you want, you felt that you struggled with the previous one, we'll do just another round of this, right? But if you felt that you owned it, then you can try the second version that I showed you. And if you can't do it like all the way, you can switch to the previous one midway, okay? But the version is that you're in a, more like in a push-up position, right? Then lower a little, one hand goes in front, so if this is the right hand, then my left knee touches my left leg, hips are low, and I keep them low. It's not like this, okay? It's there.
Ah, c'est un lézard, enfin, c'est un lézard. Ok, on va essayer de...
Allez.
Bah, moi, c'est le même côté, hein, merci beaucoup.
I'm not alone on the bench.
Alors ça, je fais pas ça pendant tout le temps. Ça me fait super mal. Là, on regarde Elisa qui va nous dire il a fait depuis 16 ans. Et qui arrive parfaitement. Ouais. Il faut prendre son sens. Ça, je sais que ça m'explose les jambes, donc je fais.
Oh là là, c'est dommage, hein. Dommage.
Allez, on te voit.
simultaneously with our hands, with our legs, and this is only possible if you like sort of do a dynamic squeeze into your abdomen. And you try to jump yourself up to the squat position. Okay? So I'm here, right? This, okay? Then I up.
Alors, il avait dit, hier on a fait beaucoup de jambes, mais aujourd'hui on va falloir sauvegarder un peu les jambes.
En vrai, c'est du corps, ça c'est plus du corps.
Mon gars,
Enfin, de la ceinture abdominale, tu vois. Quoi.
Cette position à l'autre, c'est la jambe aussi. Hein.
Ah, en fait, ouais, c'est sûr, c'est sûr. Croix, 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 croix.
Like so, okay? Now I can assume a more or less sensitive stance, and now the exercise is simple. We'll go for about a minute, I'll tell you what to do. If I begin, I extend the arm and lean towards the target, and his job is to lean back on his back leg, so that I can miss. Now I return, and it's his turn, so I go get the back up, and I wait with my lean back until he starts, okay? Try to start with the hand before you leave, right?
C'est du fleurage.
Don't leave before I start. So it has to be a reactive exercise, okay? Thanks. Hard pairs. Motion is up to you, right? So you grab it, and now we'll be trying to like unbalance each other. But now the thing is, if what's your name? Leo, if Leo drags me, and manages to lift my foot up, it's still not the end. As long as I'm able to stand there, or then get back more or less on the line that we started at, I'm fine. The objective is to make me touch the floor somewhere else, outside the line, or perhaps support myself with something other than the leg. Okay? So this is what we're looking at. So, like, so let's do it. And we both work towards that end, right? So we want to imbalance the opponent by pulling. We can also push, for instance, right? There and there. That's right. We can lower the stance.
C'est pas mal ça.
No. We're not making it a joystick, okay? And generally you're trying to keep the grip, but sometimes you may slip or whatever. That's okay. Yeah, but try to maintain it. Clear? Stances. Ready, stances. Ready. Ready. Go.
Ah oui, merde, c'était le même route.
This kind of position, right? Or this kind of position. Generally, if it, although there is one technique when it says it starts from above the shoulder, there's only one, and it's when you counter somebody's overhouse with soul. But other than that, it's never mentioned this, at least not explicitly. It doesn't hint about any important particular position of the squat. If it says anything about the starting positions, it's usually about starting from a low guard. So that's something we're gonna explore, but not right now. But because of its emphasis on bind work, especially not necessarily when you fight, but when you train the manuscript where you're fighting, you will end up doing many things with your arm extended, weighted by the blade, and also working with an additional load from the opponent's weapon, trying to manipulate yours. In effect, what you have is quite a straining exercise for the whole arm, and especially for the shoulder joint and the so-called rotator cuff. That's the complex of muscles that keep like your arm attached to the rest of the body. If you neglect this area in your physical preparation, you're asking for trouble. And while it's not a physical preparation seminar, so I won't delve into it, especially that I'm not an expert. But now I want to show you two warm-up exercises with the weapon that won't fix this problem, but they significantly help at least delay the onset of the problem. And if you do proper physical conditioning, they will be part of you avoiding the problem altogether. So now, the first exercise goes like this. You raise the sword up, making sure that the grip aligns well with your forearm here, and you keep it like fingers. You keep the pommel and the grip securely touching your forearm, and you want to extend as much as possible and as vertical as possible. Okay, and then when you reach the final position, you start rotating. And you do 15 of those. So like left, right is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Keep it close. Then down, shake it off, another. Up, vertical, high, and straight. This is securely tight for start similarly. So we're going up. This is still pressed against the forearm, right? And then without releasing the nice position that we have here, this extended position. And if you look, if the point is somewhat forward, this is going to be a much less valuable exercise than if it's really vertical. And sometimes if you feel like you have stretching issues in this area, you might actually even go somewhat to the back to feel a stretching. And it's really important to try to keep the elbows straight, okay? So when you do this, so without releasing this position, you turn the sword so that the long edge faces forward and the tip is more or less to the side. And then you stab something very little. Okay? Then you rotate, up, that's right, up, and then up, down, up, up. Right? Pommel against the floor. Up, yep. And we're doing 15 of those. We are at 4, 5. 6, 7, this particular exercise from the men's fencers, German guy standing and just like striking each other's head from a set measure, and they call it Krautstechen, meaning like thrusting the lettuce or cabbage, thrusting cabbage. So you can imagine that this part you need to maintain point control here, so it's not can't be wobbly on your way down. Right, but you want to really see this cabbage and you want to bump. Be spot on with the thrust, and after you do this, then do not like help yourself by lowering the elbow, but the elbow is set, and if it does anything, it turns inside as you lift the blade by supinating the forearm, but just turning it outside. Okay? Fine, let's do it on the other hand. The wrist. Apropos, you assume any kind of stance you want with your legs. Grab your weapon, extend the arm, and then without bending the elbows, do some slow rotations from different directions to the middle.
Hey.
Things that we did. Now, further up, at this stage, I will explain something and then we'll split again. So, as you probably noticed, yesterday, we did most of the things with your left foot forward, right? And this is partially like in direct response to Adrian's request. But now I wanted to explain that this kind of fighting, when you like deliberately put the left foot forward and prepare to attack from there, is what the author of the manuscript calls artful way of fighting. It's not everything about it, because the complete description of the artful way of fighting actually also tells you to put your left foot forward and then try to threaten the opponent with like threatening strikes, translating from the German original, that go from your right side downwards, right? So this is like basically probably either like to try to do this, or perhaps combine with a step, you threaten the opponent and see if you can engage them from this position, okay? So that's the artful way. And by artful, in this case, it can mean several things, but probably this is the kind of fighting that includes the like onlooker or spectator component, because probably you are being watched and you want to prove something by using the specific technique, right? But like slightly below, in the same passage, he contrasts this with what he calls strong fencing. That is not the artful one, but the one based more on strength, however understood. We don't know his physical strength, or just like, because you know, this is also strength for him, like the strength of the weapon. We don't know exactly what he means, but what is peculiar is that in this particular kind of fighting, he doesn't bother with the foot. So probably it was whichever foot can be forward, which opens the possibility of fighting from the right foot forward, even as you begin, right? And the other peculiar thing is that the strong fighting is to be done from the left side, from down upwards. This is what he considers the strong kind of fencing. You already saw yesterday that although even in the artful fighting we start with the left foot forward, but as we engage the opponent and we fail to hit with the first strike, we end up with the right foot forward, and actually there's a lot of fighting, at least there's two threats that we did, right, that happens with the right foot forward, right? So I wanted to make it clear today that the Codex is not all about fighting with the left foot forward. Actually, it seems that he's largely, he doesn't care that much which foot is forward, as long as you're competent with fighting with either, right? So you have to be competent with both and be able to attack from any position. But left foot forward actions are mostly for, he actually says, will to Kunst schauen, meaning if you want to present art, then this is how you fight, right? This is what you do. Aber will to stark fechten is, but if you want to defend strongly, then foot is unimportant. You go from the low position on your left, going upwards, right? So I just wanted to make it clear. And now, because of this, we'll first revisit the artful way to attack, that is artful umschreiten, as you remember, right? This attack that we actually want to hit, but then we'll explore the same action only done with the right foot. Okay? So now, if you give me some room, just to remind you, the umschreiten was this action where I was, and now we're going to actually start from our right side up. Right? So you can assume actually any kind of stance you want. I will present it like this being my generic frontal position in the Codex here. So I'm left foot forward, profiled with my right shoulder already here, right? And as you remember, as I go to engage with my point, I already go down on my knee, right? So it's there, and then it's this kind of action. I'll now try to show you without stopping at the same time. This. Right, so I'm here loaded for a potential knock-walk, and if there's a need, but we don't do the knock-walk now. I want you just to focus on get somewhere here. So on your right side, being able to start with a downward strike. As you go, you load the knee, and you end up in the final position, already turned against your opponent. Give it a try like a couple of times, okay? Find yourself some room. Remember, although it is something, it's an offline in the end, but only in the end, because we want to create a convincing threat. And no convincing threat can be created if you try to extend the arm against the opponent while going in a circle. Right? Any real attack goes again along a straight line. This is also something explicitly said in the codex, right? So the wrong way to do it is that I present the point and then I start circling. This is not what I want to do, because if, well, could I ask you, or at the end, I could you put a hand just like a point of reference, right? I would like to hit that hand, right? So if I'm here and I do like this, then I barely touch the hand or even entirely miss it, right? Because I'm going in circle. The thing is, now I do it slowly, that I need to be forward and linear in the crucial part of the ball, right? So that's why I follow the knee. I already connect, and like sideways motion happens only after I reach my final reach. Okay, so it's a linear hold. No hand, right? So it's linear there, and only at the end you add the offline thing.
Just the right leg is going together going forward.
More or less, yes. Here the point, especially the point, has to be linear there, and then happens the offline motion. Yeah.
So would you say that there are, maybe for clarity's sake, two parts to passive step?
Yes.
The first one, like this.
Yeah, but now, I did, the first version I showed you yesterday, there was exactly like that. So I did this already with extended leg, but this doesn't create an opportunity for much of the of angulation. So that's why with the new version. The second version, I keep this bent to have a load to actually move myself in the second part of the motion. Okay, let's do it. Now, and it's actually a bit easier to do when your shoes are not that sticky. A bit more slippery shoes, there's more room to adjust the foot as you like. But generally, if you do it correctly, this is more of a sound that you get. Okay? But just the thing to consider, you don't need to try it now. But I just because normally in HEMA we don't condition our bodies properly for this kind of motion. Now I'm talking about starting it with the right foot. And I'll show you why. Because now, the safe way, and that was my initial interpretation of this motion, if you want to do the umschalten with your left foot forward, right foot forward, but you are still a right hand, so your right shoulder is here, and you're going to attack on the straight line there, the codex still wants you to go to your right, even though you are starting with the opposite foot forward, right? So, basically you want to attack there and then go this way, right? And what I initially do, did out of it, and I still do sometimes in combat when I see an opening and know that I have a very tiny window before the opponent closes this, I still do it the way that I'll show you now. So I'm here, again, extend on my knee, already, and I basically do a flash over to the side, and I regain my balance here, again with my right foot forward, right? So this is the more dynamic, more daring way to do this. The more conservative way, and the way which is actually more dangerous to your body if you haven't trained it specifically towards this for a while, is the less dynamic way, where you do not end up with the right foot, but with the left foot forward, right? So I'm here, back there. And this is where I end up towards the opponent, right? Still angulating towards the right, but with my left foot forward. Yeah.
Do you have any idea why you just go from the left side instead of the
Yeah, that's because it makes doing all the rest of the things possible.
So it's for us.
Yeah, it creates a, well, it doesn't give you an opportunity to do the basic line work that you're supposed to be able to do. Well, he assumes that you are
structurally stable from the second.
Yes, that's right. You do not force yourself to find on your weak part, on your weak point, right? Yeah.
Do you go for the left if you're
No, actually, well, now I'm not sure. I'm not mixing it up with left, right, which I also worked at. Yeah, but I think still in the codex there is an assumption that you don't care how handled you go. You try to do your own game, and yeah, and generally it works like this. If you do it correctly, it doesn't really matter how the opponent fights, as long as you can create convincing threats.
as long as he is right-handed. As long as he is right-handed.
Yeah, he assumes that the typical guy will be right-handed. He talks about fencing from this perspective. Yeah, so he won't probably right-handed himself. Right, yeah, so what I propose, gently, very gently, you are right foot forward, go. So, leicht to mord, already with this, go on the knee, right? So this is like one thing that you do if you are like there. And once you do this, kick the left foot and land on it, like actively using it to push your body to the side, angulating towards the opponent and landing with the left foot forward, right? Don't do it fast, do it slowly with respect to your own body, okay? Go.
Ah ok, donc faut éviter au maximum quoi. Ouais.
Exactement.
Ouais.
C'est pour ça que j'aime pas être jambe gauche devant. Il y a plein de gardes, en fait je les inverse. Parce qu'en vérité j'ai plus de stabilité en les faisant d'une manière bizarre.
Ok. Après,
En les faisant de manière canonique, parce que la manière canonique me fait trop mal.
Il faut s'adapter aussi, c'est ça. C'est le corps.
Et du coup les gens me disent mais tes jambes elles sont à l'envers, je suis en mode oui je sais c'est un choix.
Je peux pas être autrement.
That's right. This is what fucks up the brain a lot, because the brain needs to constantly keep track which foot is forward. This is really heavy on the brain, especially at the beginning. So it takes a long time to
il est en retard,
get
ouais.
used to. At least quite a long time, and I still struggle with it. So that's why my
Heureusement qu'il y a la vidéo pour le workshop. Quoi.
gets like,
On est bien d'accord, c'est dans IP long que les gens annoncent.
Événement, regarde peut-être. Après, je pense qu'il a le numéro d'Adrien, normalement, il aurait contacté.
Ah, il est là.
yes, but don't combine the foot necessarily, right? Like, this is not necessary. This is for knock-out, right? What you want, if you really want to make it quick, it's better to go on the knee, right? Or just do this. This and then go for the footwork. Or if you want to emphasize like speed and go on the knee. Yeah. Any more questions? No. Okay, so now I propose you prepare your masks. Don't put them on yet because I need to explain something. But then we're going to need masks just to make sure. And we're going to start exploring basic bind work. Okay, so bring your masks, bring your weapons, no gloves. Because the basic concept, like kinesthetic concept, movement concept, that like structures almost all bind work in the manuscript. So this is like a central piece, so I want you to really get it right. And I'll help you as much as possible. Now, before we start though, I want you to like understand, well, a theoretical distinction that I made. This distinction is based actually not on my own work, but on the theory of like human reconstruction developed by Bartłomiej Walczak. And he actually published papers on it. So if you're interested, then I can send it later. But well, for our work today, the important distinction is between body technique and an elementary action. Okay? And now, just to illustrate the concept, say, well, I will borrow concepts from the German tradition, but I think you can relate it more or less straightforwardly to the Italian one. So, a body technique is some complete action. Say, Zollhau. You're familiar with Zollhau, the rage cut or the rage strike of the German tradition? Right? Okay. But the Zollhau actually is the whole action. So beat the sword and then extend the point towards the opponent, right? So that's the whole body technique, but it's composed of elementary action, right? So the striking part is one elementary action, then extending the point is another elementary action, okay? Is that clear?
So several interaction make a body technique.
A body technique, exactly. So that's the basic distinction. Sometimes there's more nuance to it, but we don't need it. And now, the thing that we're going to explore now in the codex is called wenden, meaning turning, but there are different words for turning also in the codex, usually keren, which is also turning, but wenden is used in a very specific way, and also, which is often overlooked in translations. Wenden is like separated explicitly by the author of the manuscript as a technical term. Now, when you read translations of the manuscript, you sometimes see that translator, if you compare the actual text to the translation, you sometimes see that the translators decide that wenden is a spelling mistake by the author, and they correct it in translation to winden, which is winding. So you often find wenden translated as winding. But later in the codex, in the manuscript, the author explicitly says, you need to note and remember that one thing is hengen, hanging, the other thing is winding, that is winden, and the third one is turning, that is wenden. So he sort of separates this wenden as a special thing. Okay, so that's one key observation. And now, the wenden is an elementary action. And elementary actions in themselves, they do nothing. Okay, if I just extend the hand and there's no opponent, it does nothing, right? At the same time, they can do different things, right? If I extend towards an opening and hit, that was a hit. If I extend towards an incoming blow, that might be counterattack if I hit, but it will be a parry if I didn't hit, right? So it's still the same elementary action, but different body techniques, okay? Because body techniques are defined by what they do, and elementary actions are defined by what the body does, or the artifact that we have in hand, right? Is that clear? Great. So wenden is an elementary action. In itself, it does nothing. Now, it consists of motion with your arm, moving the sword, so that the long edge, the front edge of it, actually, in the manuscript, it's never the long edge, and this is not the short edge. This is the front edge and the back edge. So the front edge, he says in one place, is sometimes also called the right edge, or the correct edge. Right, so the front edge in wenden is turned to whatever direction the opponent's blade is. Right, so if I have the blade of the opponent here, then this is wenden. Right? If the blade is there, then this is wenden. Right? If the blade is somewhere below, this might be my wenden, right? Or this. If it's up, then it might be so. Okay? So generally I turn, or even if it's above my hand, I may even turn like this, or perhaps like this, right? So wenden is the motion of seeking the opponent's blade with my front edge, and edge alone. So wenden does not involve like this kind of motion. This belongs to hengen and winden, and again, the manuscript speaks about it like straightforward, that hengen and winden, they come from wenden. Wenden is the elementary part of it, but it's the first part, right? So wenden should, when you think about it, should not be automatically, for instance, combined with the motion of the elbow or the hand. This is not wenden. This is wenden, right? Just the motion of the hand or two hands on the sword, right there. This is what wenden is, okay? Right, so you may now give it a try, just to like get a basic feel of it. Things that have some purpose in common. And as I told you, the foundation, the bedrock on which the whole system was built is parries. And these parries are called abwenden, meaning turning away. Okay, so in this technique, because it's a technique, we use the elementary action of wenden to remove the incoming attack from the target area. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. And now we will need person. and masks when you do it. But now first, I need a volunteer. You don't need a mask now, just for the demonstration, so please help me. So now, if I'm here, and my sword now is in the middle, so as you see, my edge is directed at the opponent. That's the basic situation. And this is partly dictated by the fact that if I'm, for instance, in the thumb grip, pointing like this, I can't do wenden on this side because I'm already in this position. This might be sometimes good, but again, if you consider especially a wider blade, if you extend the thrust towards me, and then go slowly, yeah, so to reach me, right? So here. Now the thrust can like securely hit me, right? When my sword is flat. But now, when I turn it, the thrust is already off target. Because the width of the blade, when I turn it, provides me like 2 centimeters or a centimeter or something like that of the push just by rotating my hand. I don't need to actually move my hand at all to exert quite a lot of pressure on the opponent's sword, right? Whereas if I was here and the thrust comes, then I can't use the turning to defend. I need to use my hand in order to block the attack, okay? And perhaps that's the reason why there is no thumb grip in the manuscript, right? He, although didn't know it or didn't find it useful enough to writing and make it part of the system, right? So that's why I propose that your basic stance is with the edge more or less towards the opponent, okay? Now, one person extends the point and slowly gets with it towards the target, and you defend by just turning the hand so that it now is deviated from the target. And now, you may now consider this profiling that I was talking about, right? Because if I'm entirely frontal, the thrust goes, that's right, it may be too little to make me safe, right? The wenden alone won't save me, let's do it. But if I'm profiled, then it's much easier to defend with turning alone without any additional motions. Okay? So let's just explore it from this most convenient dominant side. Okay, thank you. Let's go. Share your first impression. Did it work? Didn't work? How was it? Depends. Great.
It really helps to have a wider blade.
Yeah, helps. This one, yeah, possible.
Just with these two swords, it's like with this one, you land right here. It's just like 5 centimeters per second.
Yeah. One thing I felt that you have to work with both hands, which is I feel like is a kind of a ringing motion on this. On the left hand, it's much easier to here, but if I just do trying to just like the work is only done by the right hand, the left hand does nothing. I get like if I just here without retracting or even barely just turning the hand and barely moving the arm over by.
Okay.
I found that with a narrower blade that was overheld, I had to like also angle my arm a little bit, and not just the hand. With just the hand, it was working sometimes, but like the margin of error was working. When I did that, I
got it. Anything else?
Yes, here. I found out that the sooner you start, the bigger the angle gets. Like if I wait for the last moment and wenden, I might get it, and if I do it from almost the point, the point, I can get an angle that saves me.
especially with the finger, you really have to start from the point. If you start the motion like halfway across the blade, you end up with the point.
Okay, that's all. And now, I will address all those issues, but I must admit that it didn't tell you everything about it. And that wasn't purpose, because I wanted first to explore the concept, find where it's lacking as is, and then I'll show you how to refine it. Now, I won't answer all these things like separately. I will instead show you one thing. So I need a volunteer, okay, to help with this. So now, lower the blade for now. Now, before we start, those of you who read the translation of the manuscript, you may remember that there's a pretty famous, because it's often quoted also by scholars of other fighters. There's a famous passage when the author says, "Remember that the heart and crown of the sword is the point, and all techniques come from the point." And people interpreting this, they often seem to be focusing on this being about how you attack, because that's of course true. But from my practice with how the Codex describes things, and especially Outland, it's actually even truer what the author wrote, because not only attacks are done on the point, but everything, including parries, is done on the point. All techniques are performed here, and generally the sword is here. The rest is just an attachment to this element. Okay? This is the handle of the sword, and the sword rests there. And now, if you think about it this way, then if give me a first. Yeah. Do it again. Now, if I think about wenden only in these terms, in turning of my hand, that is manipulating the hand, metaphorical handle of the sword, it doesn't work. Or it works only if I add motion with the hand, or really start pushing with the left hand. Let's do it again. If I parry with my point, that is, I turn so that not this rotation here is meaningless, almost. What matters is how this rotation translates to my point. Because if the point is there, it protects. If it's in the middle, it does not protect. It's easily passed through. Okay? Your parries are done with your point. Because where the point is, the rest of the sword will always follow. Okay? So now, my hand can be extended, there is the thrust, I can even wait long, and if I parry right, this won't reach me. And he's on my strong, which means that now, if I shisen, then I want you to show something. Now, you are doing really nice with this. Now I'm going to show you one thing that I promised. It's part of the cultural context, this time material cultural context. But it's not something that's directly transferable to most of the Federschwert that we use today. And it's not really necessary in most cases. But now, if you have a weapon with this kind of pommel and you are not allowed to grab it as per the Codex, then the handle is short, because as I told you, it should be by this shorter in the original. So if your hands are like this, holding the sword with the gap in here, with this sort, something called a triangle, a gripping triangle. This makes this motion less reliable and somewhat harder to do. It's much easier when you actually hold the sword so that this becomes aligned. So you remove this triangle. And the flat pommels, they really nicely set against your forearm. And because of them being flat, they really secure the sword there. But there is still room for your hand, the other hand, being here. Right? So I usually grip it like this. Of course, with the glove, the triangle is there because the cuff of the glove prevents me from keeping the hands as close as I would like to. But when I do practice in lessons, I used to do practice in lessons, I practiced without the gloves, like so. And with this, the benefit is that it's actually almost impossible to turn the sword the wrong way. Because in order to do it like this, you really need to deliberately do it wrong. If this is a one piece, your both arms and the sword is just one thing, when you turn the sword, give me a thrust, then the whole thing turns. And you do it correctly, automatically. It also makes the parry much stronger because the opponent is not fighting your arm alone, he's fighting your whole body because this is a frame that transfers your body weight a bit towards the blade. Okay?
That's the grip in both scar.
Excuse me?
In both scar, that explicitly draws this way.
Yes, there is some iconography that supports this. Yes, you do reflect, it's also presented this way, right? Yeah, so I think they knew this, at least some of them. Right, and this is also, like, and people, you already asked me, other people also ask me why I'm not keeping it like this, but like that. And the answer is, because there is no thumb grip, but I am still supposed to be able to do tverhau from my basic position. Tverhau, that's fetch, right? And now, if you hold the sword like this, and then you want to do a tverhau, this becomes really, really problematic to deliver. Whereas, if you turn this hand like so, and fight from this position, it becomes pretty convenient. At least without the gloves. Without the gloves, it gets complicated. But with the gloves, it gets complicated. But without the gloves, it's actually no problem. You're here, and you can do the tverhau fast or a tverhau cut whenever you want from the basic position. So cut there and cut there. It's no problem, and I need no number. So that's the reason, basically. Okay, there is some more, but this is the most important one. Right. So if you want, now I propose you put on the gambesons, get some more pressure from the opponent. No gloves now, still, okay? But some more pressure, I mean some more commitment with the thrust, okay? To test really your ability to parry. And if you want, you may explore holding the sword more like this, like one object connected to your body, okay? Thank you. Let's go. It doesn't have to be a lot. Struggling with this, that's normal at this stage because, well, simple as it is, this is not an easy motion, okay? It's simple but not necessarily easy, and it takes actually a lot of dedicated, constant practice to make it automatic and to condition your body not to overcommit to this, right? But once you get it, it becomes really, really natural, and it's. I argue it's pretty useful even in modern competition, even outside the world of the manuscript, so to say. But only as long as your feather is not like as thin as this. The first time I see this model, yeah, this one.
We actually managed to make it work.
It's light against light.
It's light against light.
Yeah, that's true. And also, with generally, for instance, when I spar for a longer time with this one, the heavier and wider blade, and then I switch to the feather shred, I usually in the first 2 or 3 bouts get hit through my parries, because with the heavier and wider blade, you can really rely on just turning the wrist and the parrying with the point. It really covers you well. But then when you try to do this with the feather shred, especially against strong attacks, it is not as reliable, and you need to like put some hand into it to make it actually safe. So it needs readjusting in my head. And probably it's also the case with these thinner feathers feather. You probably can make it work, but we need to add some motion in the elbow to gain this extra protection, right? So it's up to, again, being trained to use the particular weapon with the technique to make it work. Okay, but you generally get the idea. So now we're going to explore the weaker side. Okay, still using the same concept. So I put on the mask, I need the helper, okay? Now, so say we are here, right, and the opponent attacks by disengage. Like this is, yeah, and this is where they go. And hit me in the mask, okay? This is their plan, right? So now this is up wenden to this side, right? Again, remember, I'm not parrying with my hand because that won't be efficient. Do this attack. Hit me, like really, really hit me. Hit, good. Good. Hit. Put some foot into it, okay? Better. If I do this doesn't protect me, right? So just turning the hand again, it does not protect me, although I keep my point in line as some people teach, right? What protects me is that I parry with the point. And notice that I do not move my hand. I move the point out, right? Here, this is what protects me. This misses, and I can repose here, or I can repose with a cut, or whatever, okay? So repose is less important now. What I want you to focus is to practice parrying with rotating the hand so that the point parries the incoming attack, okay? Thank you. Let's give it a try. I hopefully more fun, but I want to give you like a proper understanding of the thing. Now, so we explored the up wenden on this side, we explored it on this side. Both sides, as you know, we parry with the point, right? This is an important concept here. Profiling also helps with this on both sides, yeah?
We discovered with Leo that really gripping the sword like you showed with the handle aligned with the arm really helped it.
Okay,
to
right.
not overcommit. When I was handling like that, I was often overcommitting. Like that, overcommitting become actually harder than just turning it.
Yeah.
So Leo found that it was really helping me a lot for
India, because he really wanted on the right side to just push his head super far out to be sure.
I tend to be too paranoid when the point comes, so I was really overextending, and by forcing myself to go that way, it was really easy.
That was my personal impression as well, so that's really cool that you find it in you as well. Right, and now we're going to explore one thing that's not explicitly covered in the codex about this wenden thing, that is defense against the undercut. Because as I mentioned yesterday, the undercut seems out of the scope of the author of the codex entirely. He does not expect to encounter this move. He does not expect you to do this move like directly, at least explicitly, although undercuts are present there. Hand is presented as a potential target, right? So we can sort of construe an undercut from these building blocks, but apparently it was not very important to him because he does not explicitly show us how to deal with this technique. But as soon as I took this system from the gym and the lessons into fighting against competitive opponents who didn't give a shit about my research and fighting with the system, I had to confront the undercuts. Right, so there are of course different approaches to this. One we explored briefly yesterday was to, if the undercut follows from a disengage, right, it's to follow with your own thrust only in the low line. You remember this? It's not a perfect solution, as I told you. It's something like statistically better than trying to parry this from this situation because we are so close that parrying is a risky business. It's better to counter-attack. But now we're going to focus on a situation where the opponent starts with the undercut, so we have all the time needed to make the parry unless we got deceived and distracted. Okay? And again, if you apply the wenden principle to this, there are at least two ways to parry an undercut. And we're going to explore, I will show you two, but I propose you choose one before so an exercise that you focus on. Okay? Fine. So I'll put the gloves on. I need a volunteer. And you also will put gloves for this exercise. Now, so first give me just a slow undercut, so I can highlight the basic points, right? So this is what's gonna happen, right? So don't hit me yet, but just get to the position, right? So this is gonna arrive from there, and the opponent, in order to deliver the undercut, has to go through this position at certain point, right? So now, if I follow, give me this position, please. If I follow the wenden, the wenden principle, right? So I seek their blade with my long edge, and I keep the arms where they are. I can do it in two ways. I can rotate the edge this way to cover, or I can direct it this way to cover. Right? In both cases, remember, we are parrying with the point, so it's not the arms that are trying to cover the sword, it's the point that tries to entirely remove the blade from hitting. Okay? So now, give me the undercut. This is what I want to achieve, for instance, if I parry here. And now, with the gloves, you may sometimes hear the sound of being hit there. The judges will often also hear it, so they will count it as a hit. But I actually tested it in practice with lessons without the gloves. If you do not like really push your fist into the crossguard, but keep it like more slightly removed, as usually you do when you handle the sword, then this does not reach you if you do it correctly. So that's a bit of an artifact of us being protected here. So keep that in mind. But then again, if your judges are really like keen on judging based on hearing, that's perhaps not the best tactical choice to do, parrying the undercuts this way. Okay? Give me the undercut. This is another one. And the same problem can sometimes happen here. You can just get hit through the crossguard to the glove, but your hand actually would be fine with this in most cases if it's correct. Now, so the most important thing, give me the undercut, is that you parry and then you can practice a riposte. Sometimes it's tempting in the exercise to give this riposte, because in the exercise people like artificially stand there. In actual combat it's usually not the best choice because they will usually be already returning to guard, right? So unless they stay on your blade, the better option is usually a bit longer, to leave the bind and go for the cut, either to the head or to the hand, okay? So that's just the exercise. One opponent, you might do it without footwork as we presented, but preferably do it from a more combat-like range where the opponent will need not only the hand but also some footwork. This will give you a bit more time to parry, and once you parry, you can go for the riposte, right? And with the parry, remember, it's the point that parries, not your hands like swinging around and sightseeing, as we sometimes say in vigil, okay? Thank you. Let's go. Reappears often enough to address it collectively. So look, now, may I have a helper? Okay, yeah, come. Just slowly, because I want to give you a concept. Look, when there is an undercut, the undercut can have different targets. It can go here, so more or less, give me a short undercut, because this is what most often happens, right? It can go here, along the center line, right? But it can go here, towards my elbow, so it's somewhat to the side. It can go towards my far hand, here, right? There. So the lines can differ. Also, it can happen in different moments. I won't always be with the point in line. For instance, the opponent deceived me a bit, I moved the point, and this is where the undercut happens, right? Or I was preparing something here, and this is where the undercut happens, right? So there is, really mind-blowing variety of the situations when you really look closely. And now, this means that if, for instance, the opponent starts an attack here, there, and now I want to parry by just lowering my point, I may miss the thing entirely, right? Because it's not the correct line. So now, in order to sort of not, because if you try to train your brain to distinguish between all these things, you will inevitably fail. Because it's beyond human comprehension and ability to compute to do this. Now, a workaround for this is to do the parry in a way that will collect all the lines that are possible. Right? And the way to do it is, I don't know which line is going to be attacked, right? So I will do this little circle with my point, right? Bam. So whether it goes here or here, this will get caught. There. Everything's get caught if you do it in a circular motion. In this case, when I'm a right-hander and I opt for this parry, this will be an inverted C, so to say, right? If I aim for this parry, this is going to be an actual C, right? But in either case, it's better to do it in a circular way than just with straight lines, because straight lines have to hit the exact spot, and if they don't, your parry is inefficient altogether, right? With the circular motion, you just collect a lot more angles with a single motion, and it eases your computing because you don't have to recognize the exact line, okay? Yeah.
And do you move slightly your hand to the left to avoid a cut on the left arm?
With this one? Or
No, with this movement that you show? Yeah.
Yeah, it might. It also happens somewhat naturally if you want to close the line. The hand moves a little. Yeah, and it often helps because sometimes they get through, and if the hand is removed, they will miss. Right? Yeah. So this helps, but don't overthink it right now. Right? Don't make it deliberate at this stage because it will be counterproductive. Now, just to also show you that the Codex was probably aware of this circular thing, although it does not show it explicitly when discussing wenden because it doesn't show these lower defenses. But if you look at the school fencing techniques that the author decided are worthy of preserving in the other masters section, that is the teachings of other masters that he decided are good enough to include in the book, there is a technique called the wenden, which basically is about going circularly around the opponent's sword. There is no terfunge, which has a different, like similar action, only followed with a thrust as a kind of preparation. And also there's a motion called Krauthake, where you go up and down. Usually people like interpret it this way, but in one part of the manuscript he suggests that Krauthake and wenden are actually very similar. So the circular motion should be similar to the Krauthake motion, and if you approach Krauthake as actually transitions from this things, then it becomes an exercise in circular motion, right? Yeah, so this is just like some foundation for this interpretation of the power. Okay, so now I propose to get back to the undercut thing and try to do this the circular way. Yeah.
So it's almost sometimes social something close what you have to move this through.
Okay, so we need a
Might want to do it.
now. Okay.
5 minutes, you maybe after get exercise.
Good. That's a very down-to-earth point. Yeah, break now. We'll return to this after the break. Thank you. Thank you. We can start? Yes. Okay. Listen, we had a break, so we're going to do some warm-up just to prepare. But before we do, I wanted to just remind you that where we stopped last time was this circular component to the parry with the wenden, right? And we explored this with the undercut. So we'll return to the exercise where you are being undercut, and instead of just going low, trying to catch this, we'll go with the inverted C if you're going with this parry, right there, to collect all the potential lines of attack. And if you're opting for the other one, it's going to be like an actual C, right? Not just down, there. Okay, so this is where we got. But first warm up. So I propose you finish drinking and eating put away the cups, and
Can I ask you a question?
and we'll do the one that we did last time. So remember, you start, as soon as you start, the heel goes up. So it's not like just extending the foot, it's extending the foot and raising the heel. And as soon as the heel is raised, it stays up until we finish the motion. So 2 steps, cross step, and then sink. Up, 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 up. And remember, the cross step, you shouldn't touch your own leg while you're doing this, right? Because it's not down with the leg alone. See, if I do this with the leg alone, I will touch it. This is a motion that happens with the hips. The hips do this, so I can done this full cycle from the right foot forward, where we ended up like this. You may find this motion somewhat similar, because this is the one where we start by going there, and we end up in this position at an angle, right? But not with the cross step, but with still with a line between our feet, right? So it's I start by moving the foot there, then this heel goes up, doing my body there. Up. Up. And sink down into the upper knee. Knees are straight, right? Body upright. Try to look forward rather than back. And on the toes, not on the feet. Right? Heels are up, and then you sit in and then again. You land on the toes. On the toes, on the front of the foot. Not on the heels. And the second round, as you know, is more tricky because it's crosswise. Now, the same song is the same, and then it is right. So it's always left, right, left, 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 right, right. One hand forward, the other backward. In the middle, we switch. Middle, we switch. Foot forward, but we're practicing the stepping on the thin ice thing. Okay? We try to lock the hips. If you can, profile, or at least keep the upper body like focused on the target that's in front of you, right? So without this swing, so without this hand of motion, okay? We are making passing steps up. Gently, committing weight only after we first test the ground, if it's okay to go. First withdraw, then extend back to the guard. And in the middle, switch legs, left foot in front, still up there. Up. try to keep profiling if you want to drill the right shoulder forward, the left leg forward. You sometimes, a hand strike is not, or the undercut is not something that you want to receive, right? But sometimes it's something that you want to invite because you know how to do it, okay? So, and in this exercise, it's best approached this way. So if you keep your hands here, few people will actually attempt an undercut against you. And this is also like not very comfortable place to defend against it, and usually there should be no use, right? Because if you let them that close, you like screwed up at the earlier stage, right? So in this exercise, I propose you really extend the hands a little, right?
Do you need me?
You can be my hand, right? So, right, because if I'm here, it wouldn't be very wise for you, even with a lunge, to do the undercut, because this is the threatening, right? So show them that this target is really, really there. Do the undercut. So do the undercut like the simplest one you can. Just lower the point, like this, or with the short edge. Just drop the point. That's right. And this is what you usually see in tournaments. Right. So give them this target, the easy target that they can get, and then collect the strike. Yeah, it may bounce off. Doesn't matter as long as your hand that did not receive a hit. It's okay. And after you do this, I propose you give me the undercut. I propose you practice the riposte by going up and giving a gentle cut to the head. Okay? Is that clear now? Yeah. Right? Present the hands. They have to have something to work with. Okay. Now, just for a couple tries, not for a long time, so don't spend like long with one person doing this, but switch more often, okay? Because I just wanted to finally, because you're getting good there. Now, the important thing is, now I ask you to give the riposte to the hands. It's just an example, and against opponents who are quick to return to guard, it's usually not the best choice, right? Because the head will be like getting away, so you have to either extend very long or add some footwork, which delays the whole thing, right? So it's just an example. You can use different kind of riposte with this, right? So I propose now that you like softly explore, even without actually hitting, but just exploring the angles that are possible. For instance, if I want to defend it against this undercut, I can, for instance, deliver the riposte to the hand immediately, right? Because the head might be out of reach, the hand might be still there. But of course, they can also take out the hand, which is always the case. So, from the building blocks delivered by the codex, we can also build a riposte to the leg, for instance. There, I can try to riposte there since I'm already low, and he is retreating, right? That's another option. Yet another option that I like to do, riposte with my own undercut before they are able to withdraw their hands, right? So these are examples. I propose you spend time exploring. Yes. Okay, good.
But yes, the question, we found it that when you make the C and you have to like cross your wrists.
Yeah, this one is harder. The gloves doesn't help. The glove.
It's easier if the pen on the glove for this one. For the crossed one, you can really get a good angle and the pen is really uncomfortable.
Yes, longer grips help. But the way I do it, but in the gloves, I tend to avoid the crossed one, or the right one, right? Because the gloves don't help. But if I need to do it against some undercutters, this just doesn't work because I keep being like slightly touched through the crossbar. So sometimes I need to revert to this. There's a guy from Academia Szermierz, Jarek Kopot, who is especially good at this, and fighting him particularly, I always do the undercut, despite the glove. So what I do with an arrow grip, give me the undercut, I do not cross the arms. I just squeeze it here and make sure that I parry with the point, so the point goes outside and not the hand, right? Right? Again, if you do this, then again, there are different repose that you can try, right? There is the hand repose, you can go for the leg, right? You can go here, or you can do the undercut as a repose, right? So whichever kind of defense you choose, now spend some time exploring different repose. Not all of those that I showed probably, but choose one or two and give them some exploration. Thank you. This is like an expansion to and a final sort of capsule to this basic up-wenden. Right? Okay, so you more or less get the picture, right? This up-wenden can be creatively generated from this concept, right? In different situations. I just wanted to show two things.
Please no.
How to combine this work to help you use this defensive motion, and also, well, to show you that it's a really pretty open concept that you can create a lot from. Okay, so now I'll put on the mask so I can help you. I think you have to go
On the right side.
So now, the first thing, no parry system or defensive system as such is complete if it does not take account of the potential feint by the opponent, right? So now, let's have a situation where I'm here, Leo, right? Leo will make a feint attack. Okay, so we are in a distance that you can make a feint attack. I'll try to parry it with a wenden, but if he does it correctly, I'll get hit on the other end, right? Here, that's right. So that's the basic thing. I can try to save me by joining to another up wenden. Okay, this time I sort of expected this, so I was fine. But if his timing is perfect, then that's right. I won't be able to do it, right? If I stand in place. So the first thing that I can do is to, if I'm really about to play a defensive game at this particular moment in the fight, it's good to combine the first up wenden with an up threaten to buy some more time. So let's do it again. There, right? This buys me some more time to potentially switch the thing, right? Even if I'm a bit slow, as in this case, I can still be able to do this, right? So that's one thing that I wanted to show you. And now, this is what I would like you to do in this exercise for a second. But before we proceed, I'll show you one more thing. Because now slowly, if there is an attack coming, and I start turning to up wenden, but it turns out to be fake, right? And then there is this kind of, and I should have did the up threaten, but I forgot talking. So let's do it again. There's an attack. I committed here, and there's another one coming. So one option is to go for another up wenden to the other side, right? But remove the blade for a second. But the other option, I was here, is to drop the point and gather it again to the up wenden on the same side. And it still follows the up wenden principle, because here I can turn my long edge towards the opponent's sword this way, but I can also turn it this way and it still be facing the opponent's weapon, only from below. Right? So I can catch it like this and then move it here. So done like quickly. This is, try to hit, because I think you missed. There, this is, I caught you with the first parry, so try to avoid contact. There, this is what I can do with this circular kind of motion, right? So that's another way to approach up wenden. If you want, you might try this. And actually, in the school fencing techniques, there's a technique that sort of uses this principle, because there's a technique called, you don't have to train, I just show it for cultural context, so to say. There's a technique called baking master Weckemeister in German, when we are told that we invite the opponent by standing in the low hanging, and as soon as we see fit, which usually in practice is when they extend to some kind of attack, we need to bind them on the other side and threaten them with the point. Right, so we must drop the point and then gather the attack again. So we are here. This is the baking master, okay? So this motion is sort of present in the codex, in the repertoire that he had in his mind, right? So this is yet another way to approach using up wenden to defend the weak side, right? So you can use it even if you are not feinted. Just the opponent, for instance, disengages, the person starts, this may be your defense as well. But it's best with a step back because it takes some more time, okay? Fine, so just to show you that this is actually a quite open concept. But now what I want you to do is the opponent makes a feint attack. So they do footwork, they present the threat in one place and then go for another, and you're supposed to try to parry the first one and then still transition to the second one, but perhaps better than it is, okay? Right, and you will be having some sort of repose, but you're not supposed to go very hard with the repose, okay? Thank you. Let's give it a try. That's sort of about wenden, but it also combines it with footwork. So can I ask you for help, Leo? Now, in this previous exercise, my response to opponent's threatening action was some threatening, right? So this opens the gap between us, gives me some more time, but at the same time it's a pretty linear motion. So if the opponent keeps pressing, it does little to give me any advantage. It just delays the inevitable moment when I will be confronted by the opponent pretty close, right? Unless I keep going backwards, but then there's the end of the mat, right, or the field. So I can't keep doing this, like, you know, all the time. So now, the one thing that the Codex proposes that's a way out of this problem is the Ausschreib, that is a passing step to the side. And now, I will present this from the right foot forward position because that's the easier way, and it's also sort of more useful because it's especially nice when you try to attack, but the opponent voided the attack by going backwards, and now they are trying to start pressuring themselves, or just try to do this kind of like what Germans call nachreit, jump out and like run in against their own attack, right? So now slowly the situation as we want to have it. To make it simpler, what we're going to do, we'll make an attack from place with the right foot forward already. I'll try to snipe the hand. The opponent reacts by going back. That's right. And now he's gonna get back, already presenting the threat. Right? So you step in, that's right. This is what's gonna happen, right? So I have different choices. I could parry this counter, like whatever, but what we're gonna practice now, let's do it again. So it's my attack, I'll strike it, and I will present the point here. I don't have to hit it. It's not my aim to hit the hand. It's my aim to present the point as something that the opponent can run into if they keep pressing with the hand. Okay? And as you see, the angle already changed, so the opponent also. If they commit too much momentum, they will actually run past me. Like if they yeah, I put on a mask.
Sécurité.
So after you take this initiative, you can attack with the flash, okay? Move here so I don't run from here. Yeah, this is what may happen if you do it correctly, right? So the opponent goes entirely past you. Now, and this is the Krummhauen, the crooked cut. No, cut is a wrong translation because Hauen doesn't mean cut. The correct translation would be like crooked or curved attack or curved strike, if you will, right? And this strike is done with the point. So you don't really need to like bet your money on that you hit the opponent, but you want to present the point towards the hands in a way that removes the hands from the line of attack, right? And now the Ausstreiten part is done with the front foot because it's a passing step. But again, if you try it entirely to the side, you may be late and you may receive a hit because your sword does not protect you very much with this. This works much better if this is a passing step somewhat to the rear, but also to the side. That changes the angle and still gives you the opportunity to strike the hands, right? So once again, up, back there. See? If I keep the point there and he does not do anything with his hands, he will run into the point. Of course, if I'm precise with its placement. Okay? So that's the basic idea. And now, how does it tie to the upwend? It ties to the upwend, and because I don't always hit with the point, sometimes I'm also a bit too late to do the entire void, and I end up contacting the blade either from above or sometimes from below. Let's do it. Now I deliberately missed, right? But as soon as this happens, the opponent will notice and they will redirect towards me. And if I do nothing, this is what I'll probably receive. So as soon as I realize that I missed, I do the up wenden and I arrive at the hengen. Now it's a secure position and I can work from there, right? I can do my riposte. I generally am back in the fight. Let's do another one. Now I missed upwards. I stopped just to stop, right? But I missed. As soon as I feel that I missed, I should go to the up wenden, and now I'm secure. Even if they deliver a riposte, it's going to be stopped by my blade that I can deliver mine, right? So this ties to the up wenden. If I miss with the point, I'm on the weapon probably, or either above it or below it. So I should immediately, using the wenden concept, turn my long edge towards the blade, and this will secure me because this will put me in the hengen position, the hanging. Okay, let's do one more presentation. This time I don't know what's going to happen. Perhaps I hit. Now I didn't hit, so I'm here in the hengen position, and we can fight. I know that he parried nicely, but this immediate path is close to him, right? He can't beat me here, so I'm safe. So I can just wait here for a second and see what he does. That's right. If he goes there, I can go in there and fight from here, or maybe if he hesitates, then I'll do something and I go there, for instance, right? So I'm safe in this situation, okay? So now, just the motion slowly, you are here, you strike, they go back, then as soon as you see they go, you do the Ausstreiten and present the point. You hit the hand, it's great. You don't, you immediately seek their blade with your long edge, right? And then you can just gently deliver a riposte, okay? Thank you very much. Let's go. For it to work best, it has to be backwards, meaning that if the right foot is in front, it needs to go behind you. Right? It's not this, much less this. Okay? It's there, bump. If you want to make a jump, as I did now, it's okay. If not, at least keep it backwards. Okay? You need to create not only angle, but also distance from the opponent. Okay? Try it solo. I want to see how you do it. The last thing about wenden that I want to show you now is tied to this, like probably most famous strike of the German tradition, that is the Zornkampf. Okay? Now, if you read some Danzig or talk to guys doing hengen, you will, if I may ask you about, okay? You probably saw the situation when I'm here. I'm being attacked with an Oberhau, that is an upper strike. I defend by striking at the sword and then delivering a thrust, right? So it's a beating parry and then a thrust repulse. And this is how it's described in the Danzig fight book or Ringen fight book. Now, it's very different in manuscript 7a because it's not a beating parry, it's a direct counter-attack. So if we can do this is what the codex proposes here. This time I missed because the strike was already transformed into a parry, right? And that's good because that would be a hard thrust with this kind of commitment from the opponent, right? But you see the intention, right? If the strike goes a little low, do it slowly, then this is what's going to happen, right? And now, the thing is that if you try to do this strike, and that's the problem often encountered by Danzig guys or Ringen guys trying to implement some 327A into their fencing, is that, let's do it. But if you can do it like moderately fast. If you try to do it like this, with the cutting plane, you will often get hit with the thumb, in the thumb, or sometimes even the head. That's a common problem. And now, this problem is entirely solved in the 3227A, which most people overlook, by the fact that the Zornhaus section also references wenden, which is explained at the end of the manuscript. And if you use the wenden concept with this, so instead of keeping this plane, because it's not a cut in 3227A, it's actually a thrust, because you hit with schießen and the ort, and that's a counter-attack. So there's no point keeping the edge at the opponent, but instead, if you turn the hand like this, your arm is entirely protected, your head is safe, and you can deliver this as a thrust counter-attack. Let's do it again. So this time with schießen, right? This is what happens if you apply the wenden. Instead of keeping the sword like this, which leaves you open, right? You turn to wenden, and this is a different story. Okay, so what I propose now, just briefly, try to, or maybe, well, I'm not sure about it, because perhaps this motion is not important for you as a theoretical.
No, we do it. It's essentially the thrust from the shoulders pretty much.
Yeah, so if you find it useful, we can spend a couple minutes trying this. Okay, again, as with all the wenden actions, especially with some bulky gloves, you may find that you get somewhat touched there, right? But it's artificial. Without all this additional volume here, and the hand is entirely protected. So if I'm doing it here, we can do it again. You can really strike. Give me a strike. No, give me, like hit me, really, okay? Ah, yeah, there you go, very good. Ah, yeah. Let's do again, I missed a bit. Ah, there. Here, my hand is nowhere near being struck, as you see. Even if he goes much higher, here, my hand is still protected by the crossguard and by the wider part. And it's even more so with the wider blade. Because, as you saw, this is so wide that it almost covered the whole arm from both sides, and especially from the side of the fingers. Back there, and if we do it here, I stepped back for better visibility because I saw that it's going to be hard. But here, my fingers are nowhere to be hit. Even if he goes up entirely with this, right? The fingers are still out of harm. Okay, so that's what I propose to try. Thank you. It's not made up. They clearly were fencers, but they were not literary fencers like by default. They were trying to reconstruct this based on what they knew. And actually the differences in how the later sources approach Zornhaus compared to manuscript 3227A is one of the arguments there, because you know, if you read Danzig and his description of the Zornhau, it's a bit self-contradictory because he says first, remember, Zornhau is a strike with which you hit with no versetzen. And then in the next sentence he says, okay, he strikes, so strike at his sword and then feel what's going on.
Yeah.
And if he's weak, then give him a thrust. Right?
But Danzig is a terrible source.
Yeah, but Ringig says more or less the same. Left also along the same line. Right, and whereas in the Codex we are told he strikes just shooting the point. So it's a different motion altogether. And now, wenden, that as you saw is pretty fundamental in the manuscript. There is no mention of wenden whatsoever. The word even does not appear, or its equivalents, in the later sources. And I believe that they had to do this self-contradictory interpretation of the Zornhau because they, when they tried to do it the Codex way without the wenden, they noticed that it just does not work. It's just dangerous. So I think that's why they developed this: beat the blade and then shoot the point, because they couldn't make it work because they lacked the crucial component, the technical component of wenden. Right?
How long is the gap between probably existing?
Probably 2 generations at least, or 3.
Oh, so 50 years?
Yeah.
50, 40 years?
Yeah. So it's well enough for one tradition to die out, and another one having to work from scratch, right? We, as I described yesterday in the evening, we have like parallel phenomena. Like burghers were indeed reconstructing certain knightly traditions based on text alone, because they managed to write down the tradition early when the knights were flowing into towns, but then these knights would die out and the whole tradition was dead. But the burghers had manuscripts and they started working from these manuscripts to reconstruct traditions. Yeah, so I believe that the later fight books are part of this movement. Yeah.
How can you explain that there is no oral transmission for 2 generations for the tradition to die out? Is there an explanation?
If the people, like if the practitioners of the tradition die out.
Without transmitting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we know that it happened with other traditions at the same time in the same region.
Oh, okay.
You had to be there yesterday, the period where they were reconstructing the national tradition from only books. Did they use it? Did they put it to practical use, like they're duel to the death or something happening?
That's a great question that would require a longer answer. But the short answer is that I believe they didn't, because at the time duels to the death were not a thing actually.
Okay.
But they had already the slowly developing Fechtschulen, this competitive fencing. So I think they tested this there. And also certain things that were meant for actual like lethal combat that manuscript is concerned with, they perhaps didn't entirely fit that context, so they started to changing things or reconstructing them differently because they reconstructed them in a different situation.
Was that linked to Mayan standards?
Yes, certainly.
So this tradition is not for fighting wars?
Well, you know, no, not wars. Manuscript is concerned with fighting with a single opponent that you want to kill.
Okay, yes.
And that who probably wants to kill you as well. Right? This is his main concern, but not the only concern. He also deals somewhat with the school fence. Yeah, but the later ones, that's complicated because now, to put it short, I believe that the later guys, most of them probably never killed a man, or like perhaps the masters, perhaps they did, but most of their students would never kill a man because that was murder and that was not socially acceptable, and there were not many occasions where it would become acceptable. So most of them would practice fencing only within the socially acceptable frame of socially sanctioned violence, right? Like sports. But then again, I think the reason, because they were certainly competent fencers otherwise. They didn't need Lichtenauer, I think, to be good fencers. But they were interested in Lichtenauer because I think they thought, okay, this guy knew how to kill people. So it's better to study him because he knew the real thing and we don't.
does that competitive sport fencing, could it be the common fences?
Well, I don't want to speak about common fencing because it's such a layered and like complex thing that we know so little about that I don't have a strong opinion. So I don't know.
So you're telling me that fencing were doing HEMA in the 15th century?
Yes, that's exactly what I think. They were doing HEMA.
We know that Maciej was doing HEMA in the 16th century.
Yes.
It's HEMAception all around.
So in all this genealogy, like where do the outward tradition fit in? Like the other masters who have this kind of somewhat close to Mishnah, but without directly citing the master book.
Yeah, that's a good question, and again, the answer would be complicated in a sense before. But yeah, there must be like the fencing was already there before the fight was right? So there were some local communities, local oral traditions, and also probably emerged from there through some interaction, probably with the curriculum of the Marx school, who were already like going around the Holy Roman Empire far before the church. And they were based on Mishnah, but they also were changing things. Yeah, so they probably spread and they were locally changed again, so that's the easy answer.
You're talking about like a system, not necessarily the way of fencing. Like maybe they had some way of doing fencing, just the difference with us
There must have been some people that actually why the need for research?
Yeah, perhaps because they perceived their own experiences as an instructor. And Mishnah provided a structure, a cognitive structure or a conceptual structure.
What about the idea of
Yeah, that's also that might be fun. Yeah, but this is for a longer discussion. Okay, so let's stop here. Okay, guys, listen. Now, looking at the clock, I see that we need to make some choices regarding the content that we cover. So now I turn to you to make a decision for me, because we have two options that I see. One is a bit more technical still thing, so more dry drills, providing some conceptual framework that you can later rework into like fighting thing, and that would be the displacement, that is the Vorsetzen as perceived in the codex, because that's another topic that's sort of tied to wenden, but with a twist. And the other thing that we can do is more tactical, so somewhat more applicable to practice. That is the secondary tactical complex, which deals with the situation where I did the Vorschlag and I got the... so I did the Vorschlag, meaning I got a parry, right? Just to make it straight and clear. So I did the Vorschlag, but I did not get the green light for my planned Anschlag, and I now need to, quickly improvise something.
Second one for me.
La deuxième option se met de ce côté, la première option se
So
met de ce
actually the
côté.
issue we have with the first off when there is this gap between wrestling range and cutting range where we're not too used to fight there.
Okay. So, yeah, then secondary tactical complex. Okay, listen, so drink some water. If you need some, 2 minutes break, we can have 2 minutes, and then we move on to the material. Need a volunteer. Okay, deal.
My dummy as well.
Okay, so let's say that I wanted to do the thing that we did yesterday, right? So I'm here, I'm fighting artfully with the left foot forward. I'm going from above, and I want to get a strike. My idea is that, okay, I will probably scare him off with this foretrack, get a bind, and from there I want to make a knock volley. That's my plan, right? So I explode, okay, now I get a knock volley. I explode and parried, and now I can't do knock volley because he parried entirely, covered this line. So I need to do something, right? One thing, of course, is to just run away and try in the corner. That didn't work, but I don't want to do this. So now the secondary complex comes into place, and what the codex says: if this happens and you can't do your nakshak, then you need to turn to winding, and winding proceeds from hengen. So first thing, I need to establish hengen. When my hand is extended, that's no hengen. That's shisen. And shisen is pretty weak because now he can like take full control of my charge pretty easily, and now I'm in trouble, right? So, and even if he does that, I can still regain some control by going to hengen. And the mistake that people often make in German longsword, from my perspective, is that when they say winden, they usually think about this, the upper winden. But the windens are many, and actually this is one of the least useful in practice, from my experience. The most useful is one when you go here. This is where I regain some control. He can, of course, try to attack, but if he attacks on my blade and I keep this tight in my fingers with the up wenden, he won't get it. He may feel like that, he may even push my blade a little to the side, but now attack. As soon as he starts attacking, this line closes sort of automatically, right? And now I'm ready to deliver the repose. So the first thing I do if my plant nakshak failed, my hand is extended, I regain control by going to the hengen position, so gathering here and keeping a good tight connection with the bind. I'm not pushing to the side, I'm only trying to do my up wenden properly, so parrying with the point. And now if he pushes, it might look like that I'm open, but as soon as he extends, I will be covered once again. So that's the basic thing, okay? And there I can decide, because now, let's do it again. Of course, many things will happen. This is the easiest way, and the mistake on his part would be to just parry and extend with the repose, right? Because here, I'm there, and now if he now extends with an immediate repose, with the same line, he will be parried like we showed before, right? So I'm here in the hengen secure, and if he now changes the line, for instance there, I need to be ready to parry. But for him, it's going to be quite a long way to change the line, and I'm more or less prepared to deal with this. The same goes if he, for instance, from there lowers the point and tries to go to the low line. Right, if he goes at this point, if I'm in proper hengen, I'm just fine. I have to do nothing. It will like parry itself automatically. The trouble in practice is if he goes for the leg. What the codex says, you should do this. Right, it sort of works, but if he's weak, you may get a double. So what I sometimes end up, if I have enough mental resources during that stage of combat, is I do this, right? But this is all, again, based on the balance and measure, right? Because if I committed too much with the foretrack, I won't be able to do any of this, right? Because this is all based on me being in a more or less stable position, right? Like we learned yesterday. So, let's give it a try like this. We are going artfully, left foot here, bam. I explode, that's right, he covers the entire line, so there's no point doing the knock volgen, right? So I just extend just enough to be able to do the up wenden, but not to lose the bind, okay? And I wait there. If he does extend frontally, then I should be able to just parry this with minimal effort. If he changes the line, then I parry elsewhere and deliver my repose. Okay, that's a simple drill, but that actually covers like 60% of situations where you need to use this tactical approach. Okay? Thank you. Let's do it. Can I ask you for help? Because look, as soon as this situation happens, there are like plenty things can happen, right? So I regained it, and let's say that he goes for a middle cut towards the hands. Right, if I'm correct with my hands, so they are not too high, I will parry this automatically. And as soon as this happens, see, I'm in a position where he's weak, so he's up for a knock volgen. Even if he starts to retreat now, then I can chase him
with a knockvolgen, right? As long as I keep my legs and balance, so I have like potential to explode into this motion, right? So it ties back to everything that we did before. Again, there are other things that may happen. So I explode, blocked it, and now he retreats more, and for instance tries to undercut me on his way out, right? So I either withdraw my hands, withdrawing the fight altogether, or if I'm more confident, I can do this, and for instance go for my own attack, right? Because like one phrase of arms finished, it's another one, so I can do my own attack, right? So like these things like make a full circle, sort of, and they arrive at the same place at a certain moment, right? Okay, so one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, remember that however you did the first strike, because for instance you can do it also from the right foot forward, right? So I exploded here. It's the same thing. I got parried, so this is where I'm gonna try to regain my hengen. And try not to lift your arms, because if you lift your arms and they deliver a riposte low, you will have to lower them again. So again, it's more thinking, more management for a mistake, okay? Try to, when you're learning your wenden, that's actually one of the most important lessons in the system. If you learn wenden, learn with a partner, not only with trust. We did trust because they are easiest and they are best to illustrate the concept. But as soon as you get the basic understanding of wenden, train it against cuts at the middle, at the shoulder, at the top of the head, and all of those most of those at least, well, the top of the head is a bit tricky and the codex has a special part of it. We didn't cover it. But it exists. But all other strikes, give me a strike to the shoulder, you should be able to stop them without lifting the hands from the same position, okay? If you master this, it will be much easier for you to deal with different exchanges because you won't have to think about where to put your hands, right? You will like be secure on this side entirely. Okay? Is that clear? Good. Listen, I think we need to finish because it's just 4 minutes left. Or if you want, you may just give it a couple rounds with a different partner. Okay? But I'll need to be slowly packing myself to get to the airport. Okay, thank you very much. I will appreciate the help. Yeah, so if you want, one more round with the partner and then we go. Okay? Let's go. The last thing, actually, as we explored this like very, the things that the manuscript considers the ideal. So we were concerned about the distance, pretty long, right? Giving ourselves not only balance but also time to react at this kind of stuff. But actually, at the very beginning of the manuscript, when he describes what to do after a Vorschlag, he describes 3 actions that I think might be of interest to Fioris, or at least familiar. And I personally believe this first instance of him describing things to do after a Vorschlag as a Nachschlag actually deal with a situation where the opponent is a bit clueless and they did not step back against our Vorschlag, so we end up really, really close. So if I can borrow a sword from one of you, I'll show you. Okay, and I need a partner, just, yeah, Theo. We can do it slowly. So let's say that I did some Vorschlag, he does not step back, we end up here. So the 3 things he describes, the first thing is the pommel to the face as an Nachschlag, which is an option. Actually, pommel to the head, that's what he says. The other thing that he describes is a Tverchal, which is another option, maybe not so Fiore, but again, from the close play. And the third thing, which is a bit more interesting, that's the missing piece that I didn't show you, is to go to the Tver position, which is a kind of parry here. And from there, you may start thinking what to do. So this ties to the secondary tactical complex, right? So for instance, I get some kind of parry like this, where I can't actually go with the pommel because the elbow blocks me, right? I probably can't even go with the Tverk because this also, if he starts pushing, he will stop my Tverchal entirely. So perhaps I will go here and see what happens, right? Perhaps he starts binding this way so I can hit him here, or bind that way. So this is what will open him for either the pommel or the Tverchal, right? So there is like more to the system, and I think there are ways for you to tie it back to Fiore as well. Yeah, so that's all. from me. One thing that I want to remember, three things I want you to remember. That if there are lessons to be taken from the Codex to the modern competition, there are three. First of all, is that there is a lot of benefits in somewhat less committed first attack. That's a bit easier to parry for the opponent, as long as you can use this to set up second intention, right? So that's one lesson. Other lesson is that it's good, especially if you want to shield your own preparation and your own attack through some kind of parries. You need to keep them tight. As small motion as possible, and it should be the aim of you as a student and as trainers to help your students find during exercise the minimal effort that they require to protect themselves, right? Because this will then serve them very well later in fighting. So that's the second lesson. The third one, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot the third one. I will email you.
Is this one
anyway.
from the Codex that's in the sub-lesson?
Perhaps it was there also. Yeah. So I just forgot. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah, that was a pleasure. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me, or at least Adrian knows where to find me, so you can also contact me later. I'll be happy to explain things or help otherwise. Okay? It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ah marrant. C'est pas Tisba qui est polonais?